On Mayor's Night Out in the 2nd District. I want to thank Dr. Egan and the Hanneman Academy of Science and Technology, HAST, for hosting our event. Let's give them a big round of applause and a thank you. Dr. Egan was telling me, we have scheduled this now, how many times, Dr. Egan? We want to do it outside. At least. Every single time we schedule it for outdoor Mayor's Night Out at HAST, it always rains on that day. It has never not rained on that day, so we're perfect. I think it's like 4 for 4 or something like that. So, but anyway, thanks for quickly switching plans, Dr. Egan, and bringing us indoor. We do have the rain contingency. Now, I want to remind everybody, Mayor's Night Out is driven by your questions. And when I walked in, we had 3 questions, which is wonderful. But you know, if you want to prolong the event, you have to ask more questions. We have Ann in the back. Ann, could you raise your hand? And she's with her beautiful daughter, Marley, her beautiful daughter, Marley, also. So thank you, Marley, for helping out. If you want to ask a question, please fill out the form back there. You do not have to put your name if you don't want to. We do it to follow up. So let's say you have a code enforcement issue and you put your address down. We could follow up with you, or you could leave it blank, okay? But you can fill it out back there. Donna, who's the special events coordinator, will read it off, and then we'll talk about that issue. Let's say it's an issue about litter or snow removal. We don't have to worry about that anymore, thankfully. But we'll stay on that topic, and if you have questions, you could raise your hand about that topic, okay? If we're talking about, you know, garbage in the city or the grass growing and you want to ask another question, we ask that you please write out a question in the back. Very simple. We've been doing this since I became mayor. This is the last one. We're breaking for the summer. And I think we're back in August. Is that true? Which is wonderful.
I think it's on your podium, 24th.
Oh, look at that. Look at you all prepared. Our next Mayor's Night Out will be held on Wednesday, August 24th, 2016, in the 1st District, Wolf Lake Pavilion. That is also an outdoor one. We try to have 2 a year. This was the first one, rained out. So anyway, let's go ahead and start, and I'll introduce the department heads.
Juan Serrano, Public Works.
Carmen Paniagua, Human Housing.
Phil Taylor, Planning and Development.
Mark Heinz, Parks and Recreation.
Chris Cantar, Law Department.
Kelly Kearney, Inspections Department.
Brian Poland, City Planning.
Ron Novak, Environmental Management.
Kurt Cook, Building.
John Doty, Hammond Police Department. Mark McLaughlin, Chief of Staff.
Dean Button, Engineering.
Milo Krasinski, Port Authority.
Jeff Smith, Fire Department.
Heather Gray, City Controller.
Jack Smith, Sewer Maintenance.
Dennis Radowski, United Neighborhood Sync.
Chris Campbell, Information Technology.
Owana Miller, Community Development. Chris Sakalaris, Legal Aid.
Sharon Daniels, Personnel and College Bound.
Ed Crusoe, Waterworks.
Donna Muta, Hammond Parks and Recreation.
Okay. 2nd District Councilman Pete Torres was supposed to be here. We had a police memorial ceremony today, and he fell ill, and I know he went to the hospital. I don't think it's anything major, but he was not feeling well, and I don't think that's the reason. I'm pretty positive that's the reason he's not here. He goes to mayor's nights in every district, so he's not going to miss his own. So, Councilwoman?
I did speak with Councilman Torres earlier, and he is fine. He's at home. He was dehydrated, and that was it.
Right.
Out in the weather.
It was, yeah.
Very hot.
Yeah. It's always the hottest day of the year, too. It's funny. If you ever need hot weather, plan it with the Hammond Police Department. So, anyway, I wanted to thank Councilman Torres. He's probably watching us on Go Hammond TV right now, which is what Mr. Jacobs is doing. Is it live today, Chris? Yes. It is live, okay. It does air live, and we also get copies of this, and we archive it as well. So if you wanted to watch it down the road, it's there. Go Hammond TV is literally www.gohammond.tv. That is basically what Channel 16 used to be when I took over as mayor. And the thing about Channel 16 was only parts of the city had Comcast cable so that they can get Channel 16. If you had Dish or some other cable provider, you didn't have access to public access. So we created Go Hammond TV, and we're trying to regularly put new content out there. In fact, I know today's police memorial is being filmed by Go Hammond TV as well. So if you want to see what's going on in your city, want to catch up on mayor's nights, Board of Works meetings. A lot of the meetings are archived on Go Hammond TV. City Council meetings, of course, are also filmed live on Go Hammond TV. So anyway, I wanted to thank the council people for coming today. She just spoke, Councilwoman at Large, Janet Vanez. Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Councilman at Large, Dan Spitali. Thank you very much, Councilman. 4th District Councilman Bill Emerson. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman at Large, Robert Markovich. Thank you very much, Councilman. All right, so we got all the business taken care of early. Like I said, this is all driven by your questions, and we'll go ahead. Donna, why don't you start off with the complaint about the radio show, okay?
Sure.
I wish Kevin was here to hear this one. Kevin, I want to point out, when I became mayor, I went on WJLB in the radio, on a radio show in the mornings. And for the most part of 13 years, outside of 1 year, Jim Delo and I were in a huge fight with each other. But for the better part of 13 years, I've had a live radio show every Friday morning outside of extraordinary circumstances, like I'm traveling and I'm out of town. We take open calls. We talk about city business. Quite frankly, a lot of business gets done on the radio show, and I know all my department heads listen to the radio show, and I know for a fact if you call up and you complain about somebody put tires in front of my house or my alley looks like garbage, they're literally driving to your house while the radio show takes place. And over the years, we've become really good at it. About a year and a half ago, I switched formats, meaning I switched how it's paid for. It's always been paid for by the taxpayers up until about a year and a half ago. I assumed the cost of the show myself through my campaign committee. What that allows me to do is to talk about other issues, like political issues, things like that I couldn't do when the taxpayers were paying the bill. I think it makes the show more interesting. We still talk about city events. I start off every week's show with a script talking about upcoming Hammond events. So it's still, there's a lot of people who don't even realize that it's not paid for by the taxpayers anymore. But if you'll notice, my co-host, Kevin Smith, says every show paid for by the committee to elect Tom McDermott. It cost me about $13,000 or $14,000 a year out of my campaign committee to put that show on. I could easily pay for it out of taxpayer money. I think it makes the show more boring. I think it's better, actually, if you're more spontaneous. And if somebody calls up and says, hey, I want to talk about the presidential race, we could talk about the presidential race. I don't have to worry about, well, if this is being paid for by the taxpayers, I have to talk about that later on. So it makes it more spontaneous. I think it's a better show. I know it's a huge Hammond audience, but we also get a huge audience from outside of Hammond. There's a lot of people from all over the region that listen to that show. I love it. I think it makes our city look good. I think WJLB is great for our city. So anyway, I wanted to explain that background, and then we'll go into this question about the radio show. Donna, go ahead and just read it. It's a long complaint.
Okay, Mayor. I get up early on Friday mornings to listen to your radio show, which you pay for the airtime to find out what's going on in Hammond, but your moderator uses the show for his own agenda.
That's Kevin Smith.
He entertains and prolongs calls that have nothing to do with our city, like a 10-minute dissertation on crime in Gary, a train station in Dyer, and during the football season, every week he has one-on-one conversation with the same guy about Griffith High School football, which has nothing to do with Hammond, plus we have 5 high schools in our city. He should stick with Hammond issues, or I am sure you could find someone better, like Dave Ennis.
Dave Ennis, are you here right now? I'm starting to get an idea who wrote this question. So now, I wanted to shed light on it before we read off the complaint, okay? The show is not paid for by taxpayer money. I chose Kevin Smith as my co-host because he and I think very alike. Like, I could literally know what Kevin's thinking without even talking to him. And I think he feels the same way with me, and that, you know, I think it's a good radio show. We don't get many complaints on it. I got this one. It's at Mayor's Night, so I wanted to go ahead and bring it up and just start off the show. Does anybody want to follow that up? Now knowing that it is paid for by the committee to elect. I just got a $12,000 bill for the rest of the year, by the way. Yes, sir. Okay.
I don't understand why you have to talk to that guy every week during football season about the Griffith football team.
You're talking about Mad Mac?
Whoever it is.
Yeah, he's the only Griffith football fan I know that calls in. But he calls in the show. So, like, sometimes, I'll be honest with you, sometimes we appreciate call-ins because sometimes it's really intense and you're talking about really tough stuff, and then a call comes in about high school football. It's like, whew, it's sort of like lighthearted, like, but believe me, if there's pressing Hammond issues and you all wanted to talk about something that was really pressing in Hammond, like there's a situation with police or there's a situation with our taxes or whatever, we're not going to be talking about Griffith High School football. I could assure you of that, because the callers dictate the show. They really do. Like, usually I'll go in there, we'll start off our show because we do the script. And that script is prepared by the mayor's office, and it's all city events. So, like, I get this script, and I read it off, all city business, on a show I paid for at my campaign committee. So it starts off right off the bat. It's all Hammond, right? And then we go from there into News You Can Use. News You Could Use is usually about 3 stories that we choose. And quite frankly, we choose the news. So we focus which ones we want to highlight. And then it's usually 8 o'clock. Boom. We come out at 8 o'clock break, and then we go into phone calls. We usually have 3 or 4 waiting. We'll knock those off. Sometimes 3 or 4 more come in to fill them up, and then sometimes you're just sitting there dead. So like a guy like MX calls in who wants to talk, and we're just, waiting for the next call a lot of times. But I would, I'll be honest with you, I usually get tons of compliments about the radio show. And then the shocking thing is from people that don't live in Hammond necessarily. I think there's a lot of people that tune into that radio show to find out what's going on in the city of Hammond, and I think that's good. And granted, one thing I've learned in 13 years of being mayor is not everybody's always happy, no matter what you're doing. And I've learned that lesson, and I appreciate the fact that you have different viewpoints, and that's why we wanted to read off your letter, okay? I don't take offense, and I'm going to make fun of Kevin when I see him next time, though, so. Anybody else have any questions about the radio show? Anybody about WJLB? I know we were doing other shows for a while, and I know that, like if we have an issue, sometimes Mylan will call in directly and he'll talk about it, or if it's a PD issue, the chief will call in and talk about it, and, but anyway, so if we have no other questions on this, let's go ahead and move on to the next one.
Okay, Mayor, you have 2 residents that are interested in knowing what is planned for 169th and Kennedy.
Great. I know this has been asked a lot lately. I know that they're moving on that project. How you doing, Phil?
Good.
Good. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I know you were just out luring business to the city of Hammond, so it's good to see you.
Yeah. 169th and Kennedy, it's going to be a 3-unit retail building. The lease we know that's already been signed is with Jimmy John's. There are other 2 units, we don't know 100% that the lease is signed. I was told that there's going to be a national pizza chain and probably some sort of haircuttery, something along those lines. But it will be a 3-unit building. It has started. If you've driven by, they did fence it off, and they've begun. In the beginning, there was proposals for some things that we didn't want to see in the city, and we sat down and kind of worked with the developer and said, we think we have enough of some of the other businesses that you were trying to do at this site. And I think in the end, we're a lot happier with what we're getting there. And I know that from speaking from some of the people in Hessville that live around there, they're a lot happier too, seeing a couple restaurants come in and another opportunity. So I hope that answers the question.
Any follow up on that question? I know right down the street, Phil, while we're on the subject of Hessville, right down the street you have the new Dunkin' Donuts Baskin Robbins going up, right?
Yep. Dunkin' Donuts is under construction right now. We're also clearing the 165th and Kennedy, which is the Old Brothers 2 building. We're going to put a sign up. We've had several interested parties in that site. And then we're getting a lot of inquiries about the FOP site as well, which is connected obviously to the Dowling Park development.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things going on in Hessville right now. It's cool to see all the construction.
There's a lot of stuff going on in Hessville. It's cool. And then obviously the Oxbow and all the stuff that's happening across the street.
Right.
I was in Oxbow Park this weekend, and there was 2 travel tournaments going on our fields over there with people from all over the Chicagoland area lining up at our concession stand and buying high-priced hot dogs from us and stuff like that. It was beautiful. So we're digging our way out of our budget crunch 1 hot dog at a time. So. All right. Any questions on follow-up on that? Hessville business, any business actually, questions? All right, I'm going to take a break real quick. I want to go to Ron Novak. We had a situation come up last week, Ron, with the smell in our city. I'm not sure. I bet you probably this far north they didn't really have the experience that people in Hessville, Woodmar, and South Hammond got. And it seems to have gone away.
I think there were 2 incidents that were possibly related, possibly not related.
First off, Ron's from the Hammond Department of Environmental Management. So.
The first instance was a natural gas type odor, which no one has been able to track down and make a determination on. The problem with the material that smells like natural gas, because natural gas has no odor to it, the additive is called mercaptan. And so when you turn your stove on and it doesn't click on and you smell natural smell that smell, you know to shut it off. That particular source basically hit Hessville and south, and no one could really track it down. I didn't get any calls on it whatsoever, so I didn't go out, and it's still under investigation by IDEM. The second odor that the mayor experienced, we tracked down to East Chicago in about a half-mile square area. Essentially, Indianapolis Boulevard on the west, Riley Road on the north, McShane Drive on the south. And if you were to extend a north-south line about a half mile to the east, that block of property was the source. It was at least in my opinion, a rather strong solvent odor. I went down McShane Drive and got a significant dose at that time, but it didn't give me any symptoms whatsoever. And as I went down and tried to rule out who was in and who was out of that, I pretty much ruled out the BP refinery. So in that square area is the source that I tracked it back to. I've tracked odors to that area over a number of years. We're still working with IDEM now to finally identify what was happening, what was involved. But as I left the area, essentially coming back to City Hall, I wanted to see if that odor was still present. And really, it took my breath away. Lost essentially my voice. I had a real crackly voice, and I rarely feel a very burning sensation in my left lung. So other people in East Chicago had that problem, and whatever it was, because we're looking at water issues, we're looking at air issues, in my opinion, it turned out to be a release. We had several calls from folks that were in industry, workers in the area that pointed to certain companies and their operations that's still under investigation. Most of these things are temporary in nature. I sort of would say it's akin to sort of a release that would go on for about an hour, like a pressure relief valve going off. And then all of a sudden it disappears. So if you're not there right at the time when it's happening or during that 1 hour time period, you're really not going to find it. When the mayor called me in the morning, first thing I did was check the wind direction and speed so I know where the area was at, where the wind was from. And then secondly, I made a call to IDEM emergency response, because at that time, the way the mayor described the odor, it was bad.
It was the worst I've smelled. I mean, we don't get smells like that in that neighborhood. I mean, that far south, we really don't. And
the thing of it is, with odors like this, with distance comes dilution. So what the mayor smelled was terrible at the intersection of Columbus Drive and McShane Drive. It was something like, basically, I have to get out of here. I mean,
you're like our human canary.
Well, you know,
it's like, Ron, this is dangerous gas. Go sniff it real quick.
Several people have recommended to me, and I have SCBA. I have protective gear. I put that on. I have absolutely no use to tracking the odor down, because essentially, I need my sense of smell. But you have to leave the area once the sense of smell starts giving you medical symptoms.
But the thing I was thinking about the whole time is, if we're that far, I'm down by Purdue Calumet, and if the smell went from East Chicago down that far, how many thousands of Hammond residents are affected by that smell?
Right, and you saw that in East Chicago was reported in the media that other individuals had essentially the same symptoms that I'd had. And the wind was essentially out of 356 degrees, 360 is due north. So you draw a line from where the complaints are at, you trace it back. I hate to say it, this is not finding a needle in a haystack. This is basic investigative technique.
I agree with you. So what Ron's talking about is, so there's an article in the Times newspaper, and the IDEM investigator said it's impossible to find who's doing this. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. And I knew that Ron already pretty much located it. Like, no, it's not. Finding a needle in a haystack. So I went off a little bit on the radio show, and I went off on Facebook, and then I got a phone call from IDEM. They were not happy. But the smell is gone. It hasn't been back. I tell you, when stuff like that happens and you smell it in the morning, it makes you wonder what they're doing in the middle of the night when we're all sleeping. And it seemed like it was for a couple days. It was around in the morning when we wake up, and now it's gone. So hopefully they were listening to the radio show that day, and hopefully, IDEM and Ron scared them. So anyway, so a good thumb rule from now on is if you see Ron fall over because there's a dangerous smell, get the heck out of Dodge. So yeah.
Just one thing. These odors don't come all the time, but over the years we've acquired some equipment that helps track down these odors. We've got a portable gas chromatograph, which essentially gets the solvents out there. We've got a Moran IBX monitor, which are all portable. And we have a couple other items. It's called a Suma canister, where we can actually suck in air samples, send it to a lab for analysis. What that tells us is what are the components of this for investigative purposes to find out who may be handling materials like that, but also if people are suffering any kind of respiratory, circulatory problems that are adverse because of this, helps them out with their medical treatment too. So we've got some tools.
Thanks, Ron. Oh, Kevin just walked in. Kevin, I almost want to read that whole question off over again.
Sorry, I missed it. I was not feeling too good, so I got some medicine, but I'm here now.
Nice.
I heard I didn't need to stop talking about Griffin football.
Yeah, it's Mad Max. So. Anyway.
Okay with
so.
us to read it again.
Yeah, you're right. All right, anyway, go ahead, Doug.
Okay, back to economic development, Mayor.
Sure.
Are there any updates on the old Walmart property and the old Stardust property?
I can tell you on the old Stardust, I'm going to pass off old Walmart to Phil. The old Stardust property is, I haven't heard anything. Last I heard, Purdue Calumet was interested in buying it and retrofitting it. All right, and quite frankly, I think that's the best use I've heard. And if that happens, eventually it'll look really nice, but it's going to take a while because I know Purdue Cal moves very deliberately when they acquire buildings and fix them up. And when they do it, they look beautiful. Go look at the Commercialization and Manufacturing Excellence Center where WJOB is. That building was a problem for a long time, literally vacant for over a dozen years, and now it looks beautiful and it's productive. I know that Purdue Cal just bought, it used to be a video store when I was a kid, Box Office Video, just north of 171st in the Boulevard. Frank Van Til owns it. It was Miguel Torres' fight club for a while, and you know what I'm talking about, that building? It was a video store. I know that the Purdue Calumet just bought that building as well, which is good news, and eventually that's going to be built out, and I imagine it'll look a lot like Commercialization and Manufacturing Excellence Center. If they still want to go forward and purchase the Stardust, I imagine it's not going to be right away. So that's a tough part of the city right now to develop. It definitely is. I always tell people my experience in economic development, doing it for 13 years for the city of Hammond, it's right now on the outskirts of our town. It's taken off. I mean, we have people lining up. You know, in Oxbow, they're lining up. You know, up in Robertsdale, they're lining up. You know, to get them to move to downtown is a whole different challenge. You know, here to get them to move to even that part of our city. You know, Southeastern and 167th. It's tough. It's a lot tougher, a lot more challenging. So, but we have had successes. I mean, look around Menards. You know, look at the Home Depot. We've done well. And then you got the old Walmart, which is a sort of a self-inflicted wound because we allowed Walmart to move to the Cabela's property. But I know that we have some updates on that.
Yeah, we actually met with Walmart on Monday, a group of us, and I don't like answering a question this way, but the city's going to have a probably announcement, possibly later in June. So right now there's no update since last time other than that we are looking at their property as a potential for our new sports complex idea that we've been talking about that's been in the newspaper.
That was the plan before other developments came along.
Correct.
Right. The plan was the city was going to acquire the Walmart, the old Walmart, and convert it into a sportsplex. Things have developed, which make it a location for the sportsplex more enticing. That's what Phil's talking about. We can't really talk about it until it's all settled out.
Yeah, and I think within the next 3 weeks we'll be able to have an announcement for everybody.
Okay. Sorry about the vagueness. We're not known for being vague.
The Stardust, by the way, that Mayor obviously explained it, but there was a group that purchased it. They were going to put Charter Fitness in there.
They actually bought it, Phil?
They did buy it.
Okay.
They own the property.
So So they're paying taxes.
They're paying taxes on it, but the numbers for, once they got into the building, I think they probably need to do a little bit more due diligence prior to purchasing it. But once they became owners of it, they realized it was a little bit more complicated than they thought to build it out. They wanted multiple units, not just for the charter fitness, for other things as well. And the numbers just didn't work for them. So they have it for sale right now. I have asked them to take down their signs that say that, you know, charter fitness is coming soon. I don't know why they're still up, but we'll see what kind of activity happens there in the near future.
Thank you. Any other follow-ups on that? Great, thank you. Let's move on.
Okay, Mayor, moving to streets. Michigan Avenue is overinfested with potholes, so is Chicago Street. There's 2 complaints here about Chicago Street. I blew tires on both streets. When will we take care of the holes? I've been hearing the city's broke. I don't see that, being that there is a casino that the city is taxing.
Okay. Yeah, Gary? Gary's head of Department of Public Works.
Actually, we run Chicago pretty regular because of the trucks.
Mm-hmm.
We just patched it Monday because I came down Kennedy, came down Chicago Avenue, and actually had the guys the next day cut all around to welcome to Hammond because it needed. They do pop up a lot over there because of the high truck traffic. It is in bad shape, so it doesn't take much to get a large hole right away. But we do keep an eye on it pretty regular. Michigan Avenue is state highway. We only take it from White Oak back to Holman Avenue. So after that, it's states.
Michigan from White Oak to
State. It's back to Holman. And then there's one side of ours, but it's new.
Right.
That goes on farther. But the older part is that way.
Okay. And the question about Chicago Avenue, we have a huge project that's been in the planning stages. That's Gosselin and Chicago Avenue. The whole project's literally a $20 million project. We are in the process of acquiring the money we need to finish this project. We have, I think we have at least half of it secured right now to get the project going. And the part of the project that's going to go first is, and I know this because I just heard it the other day in staff meeting, is Chicago Avenue, basically from Sheffield all the way out to East Chicago. That's going to be the first part of the project because it's the easiest part and the cheapest part of the project. So we're going to do that one first. So that's good news coming for the Chicago Avenue question. It'll be a total rebuild, if I remember correctly, right, Dean?
Yes, sir.
So, and also, that project also includes Gosselin from State Line to Sheffield, dropping down Sheffield down to Chicago Avenue. It's all part of the same project. That part of the project is interesting, and it's exciting about what it could do for our city, for that part of our city. And then when you hear about some of the talk about the Gateway Station and the possibility that NICD wants to combine our 2 stations into one in Hammond, and that would be located right on the state line. It's pretty interesting when you think about what's going on with Gosselin and Chicago Avenue, along with the possibilities we can get from that train station. So I have a feeling 10 years from now, that area is going to look drastically different, newer, better than it looks right now. And it's one of the oldest parts of our city. So any follow-up questions on that particular part of our city? I have no problem if you want to follow up your question on that. I mean, I don't know if we answered your question perfectly or not. As far as the condition of the city, Heather, you want to talk about how broke we are? I was being sarcastic, right? Yeah.
We're working on it. We do get the casino dollars. It's not where they used to be, but they've held pretty steady now for the past few years.
It's still the top grossing boat in Indiana.
It is.
Right.
We did recently receive money from the state that was a special LOIT distribution, which will all go towards street projects.
Yeah, and matched dollar for dollar. Great.
It gives us the opportunity to
Great
apply for
segue.
grants that will allow us to match money from the state.
Right, and it's guaranteed basically, right? If we set aside that refund, that.
I believe that Dean can maybe answer some
You know,
more of the
Dean?
questions, what the application process looks like.
Yes, Mayor. We have to make an application, and the project has to be qualified.
And the project that we're applying for is Chicago Avenue, right?
In particular, this would be 65th. We already have the funding available for Chicago Avenue. It's set aside by the federal highway.
So 65th between the
65th,
Boulevard and Hessel.
Between the Boulevard and,
No kidding.
and Kennedy is kind of
Right.
what we're targeting.
Right.
We're also looking at other options if funding is extended.
Okay.
And that's basically around the state line, Sibley, Michigan, that area. 'Cause
Okay.
there's I'm trying to think of
That's where we are.
Willowport,
Yeah.
an area. It's
Yeah,
kind of
right
pretty
here.
well tore up. So,
Yeah.
yeah, not too far from here.
Right, okay.
So we're looking at options, but our main priority really is 165th, because we know that we've had some difficulty there, but Chicago is fully funded.
Okay.
We just have some releasing of federal funds that have.
I got you. Is that through NERC?
Yes, sir.
And it's that programmed in like 2017, 2018?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I got
Yeah,
you.
the phase 3, as
Gotcha.
you mentioned, the first phase we're going to do, we should bid in February of 17.
Uh-huh.
So you'll see that first phase
That's
of Chicago.
that's the Chicago Avenue part?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then the second phase that we're going to work on is the state line to basically Sheffield
Right.
and Goslin. That'll be mid-17, and then the final phase will be connecting the two sections in early 18.
That's awesome.
So it's coming quickly.
Yep.
We're doing property acquisition now.
All right. Heather brought up an issue that's been, I'm sure if you're following in the media, you've been reading about some communities around Northwest Indiana are enacting wheel taxes on their residents. It's a new tool that the Indiana state government gave to cities, the option to increase your BMV charges by up to $40, actually, believe it or not. And we would use all that money theoretically, and the state would match us dollar for dollar. So let's say we accumulated $1.5 million in wheel tax money from the residents of Hammond. We could take that $1.5 million and the state will double it. So we would get $3 million, and we would use it for road projects, okay? The state's selling it to us like this is a bonanza. We're going to be able to do all this road work in Indiana, and they left the dirty work to the mayors and the city council people to increase your taxes so that we could do all this road work. I don't need to remind you that right now the state of Indiana has $2 billion in the bank, and they could easily release that money right now, and we could start doing work tomorrow. But they would rather us tax you so that they can keep their $2 billion in the bank. True story, by the way. So I came out yesterday and said, and I know I've talked to the council people in regards to this, and there is no interest from the Hammond City Council or the Hammond Mayor to enact a wheel tax. I haven't heard anybody talk about it, and we wanted to make it clear that I don't see this happening. The deadline is July 1st, and we only have a couple meetings between now and July 1st, and there's been no talk. And I am not interested, and I know that most of the council people feel the same way. We're lucky in Hammond because we have the gaming revenues that's been coming in for years, even before I took over as mayor. Mayor Diedlow, and through our administration, we've been using that money to redo the roads and infrastructure all across the city of Hammond. So we're lucky in that regard. There's a lot of communities that don't do the amount of road work that we do in our city. So we're not in the same predicament that a lot of communities are finding themselves in. So we don't need to, we're not going to, and that's good news. So we just wanted to let the residents know that. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the next question, Donna.
Okay, Mayor, moving to Inspections Department. There's an abandoned house on the corner of 149th and Linden. It's an eyesore. When will it be torn down?
Yeah, that house was actually, there was a fire in that house. It was placed on the demolition list, and someone that actually bought it and is going to rehab it. It's southeast corner of 49th and Linden. So it will be rehabbed. We'll be back being occupied.
Sorry, or congratulations. I don't know what that, I mean, yeah.
Don't get too disappointed. About half of the rehabs fall through, and then we knock them down anyway.
Right. So you still have the order of demolition on it?
It's 4905 Linden. We've got an order of demolition. A new individual has purchased this and has indicated he wants to do a rehab. I've given him a rehab. I haven't gotten it back yet for Board of Works.
It's like an agreement you make with that
Correct.
person.
It's a written agreement.
And they have like X amount of time to get it done?
Yes. I usually give everybody the summer months because
Okay.
not much gets
Right.
done from
Yeah.
November.
I'm going to do it in December.
Yeah.
Right.
Not much gets done between November and
Right.
March around here.
Right.
So if it's not done by the end of the summer, it
Then
won't
we can move on.
it won't
again.
be done.
Gotcha. So, and we've had a lot of success stories of people that do rehab agreements too, right? So, granted, some of them blow up in our face as well, but ideally we want to see people fix up houses, okay? If they're not going to do it, then we do our job. And we've been aggressive on that regards too. We've been knocking a lot of blighted buildings down. We catch some static from people for sure, but at the same time, we don't find ourselves in the same predicament that a lot of our neighbors are finding themselves in, with crimes being committed in abandoned houses and, you know, not boarding them up and things like that. So anyway, any follow-ups on this demolition? We literally have a team of attorneys and workers in the code and the inspections department that work on demolitions pretty heavily. It's a big part of our budget. $500,000 at least, right?
It is annually. We also did qualify for funds from the Blight Elimination Program that has to do with the hardest hit from the state of Indiana. So you will see a lot of those homes coming down soon. It's a longer process than our normal demolition process. We have to acquire the properties first. It takes some time, but there are a number of them coming down in the next few months in order for us to meet a deadline.
So we set aside gaming revenues, we got state money, and then I know in CDBG, there's money set aside too, isn't there?
For demolition.
Not for residential? Okay.
But the JCPenney building,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a big hole now.
Yeah, I know. They blocked up the sidewalk. I found out when I was on my bike ride. So, yes, sir. Hey, Dr. Egan, how's it going? This is unprecedented.
I do have a question. How many houses approximately are on that list currently, and how many of them are right here in the Hammond Academy neighborhood?
Good question. Chris.
As to the amount, I can tell you the amount. We celebrated our 500th a year ago.
Thank you.
And we're probably closer to 600. We could do another, if the weather ever gets nice enough, we could probably do another one. But the BEP hardest hit specifically required it be in the 2nd or 3rd district. And the Hammond Academy is in the 2nd district, so there are a large concentration of properties. In addition, the housing stock in the 2nd district, the 2nd district is probably the oldest district in the city. Some of the houses dating back to the 1800s. So the 2nd and 3rd district do have the majority of all the demolition properties. It's less common in the 5th and the 4th. 6th, not as much even. The 1st district, some of the older houses too in the North Hammond section. But we've knocked down 600 places. We've processed 600 properties. Not all of them are demolished, but a good portion are.
Thank you.
There's actually a couple on Doty Street, right around the corner here.
Most of them are in the 2nd district, right?
2nd and 3rd.
2nd and 3rd, right? I know, some parts of the city, it's not as big of a problem as others, but, we just go after, and, and something that Dennis does. Dennis, could you grab the microphone real quick? Do you mind? Dennis Radowski, and a lot of people don't realize what he does is he's the success story guy. He is scouting out good deals so we could acquire a property, and then we pay to rehab the property, and then Dennis's whole goal in life is to flip that property, make money, and then use that money to buy another property and keep it going. So Dennis, you want to talk a little bit about what you do? I sort of explained it already, but.
We do that through the acquisition rehab program, and we started doing that through the Neighborhood Stabilization Program 1, which we're getting close to closing out. We have one property remaining, and then we'll go to NSP 3, where we probably have an additional $350,000 of the original grant that we haven't used. That program was so successful in selling some 8 houses when the program started. We were actually using program income from the sale of those rehabbed houses before we used the grant money. I mean, the houses were, and that was all in 4th district, by the way, in a small area of the 4th district that we designated as a targeted area. We since have talked to HUD and Awana Miller and Phil Talon, and at United Neighborhoods, Inc., we brought the neighborhood stabilization programs to United Neighborhoods, Inc., and we were also in agreement with the city through planning and development to obtain additional $267,000 this year, which will assist us in acquiring more houses and rehabbing them. Currently, we probably have 4 houses under rehab. And the only reason we only have 4, because I think we processed as many as 15 houses simultaneously, is the outside investors are beating us to the punch. We try to get a property and we just can't acquire it. But it's a very successful program, Mayor. I think in total between the 2 programs over the last 5 or 6 years, probably close to 70 houses.
Nice. So, anyway, so we did a little commercial there. Awana, why don't you grab a microphone real quick? Awana, so we talked about how we knock pieces of property down. We talked about how we acquire problem pieces of property and flip them and make money off them. And now we also rebuild our current housing stock. We have a program called Hammers for Hearts that's coming to Hammond in a few weeks. Awana, could you talk a little bit about that?
Hammers for Hearts is coming to our city the week of July the 10th. And what that is, we have a group of students coming from across the country. Some come from as far away as Hawaii. they'll be here for a week. And what they do is they do minor rehab, painting interior, exterior. They do some minor drywall repairs in the homes. They may replace the steps or a deck, things of that nature. We have about 25 homes that we're going to do this year. We have about maybe about 120 students coming. So right now we're trying to figure out where we're going to house them. It's either, it's going to be probably at a school where we're trying to work some things out right now. But they'll be here for a week, like I said, July the 10th. They'll be coming in on a Sunday. So that's a really good program.
All right, thanks, Alana. Appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and jump back into the questions.
Okay, Mayor, this resident would like info data about empty houses foreclosures. There are a few in my neighborhood. Is there anything a person or a neighborhood can do? I've received this postcard, which seems like a scare tactic, urging a homeowner to sell. This yellow card.
Well,
what can she do?
Want to bring it to Chris?
Or even after, if you want to.
Yeah. I mean, we just talked about our programs to, you know, either demolish houses like this, acquire them and flip them, rehab them. Dennis is, you know, the most close, I guess, to this situation. Is it your question, ma'am? Oh, whose question is it? Yeah, I'm trying to figure out.
Oh, well, I had a couple questions. I mean, one was, what's the number or the
rate, you know, a percentage or a number, either one, on foreclosure? Do we know?
I know probably Becky McKinley does. I know she does a report on that, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, no. I know that about 65% of our homes are homeowner occupied. We have about 30,000 homes, so that's 20,000 homes that are homeowner occupied out of 30. You know, the other 10,000 are a mixture of rental properties, foreclosures, you know, demolitions, things of that nature.
Just when it goes into foreclosure, I mean, the houses that I'm speaking of, I mean, it's been 2 to 3 years, and you can't even tell who or what bank owns it. I mean, sometimes they take care of the property, sometimes they don't.
Right.
Sometimes there's people coming there and working, and you don't know who they are, who they represent, or what the future is. And I'm just wondering, I mean, is there anything that a neighborhood can do? Can you find out what bank it is and put pressure on them to do something? They're just sitting.
Well, we do through code. Kelly, you want to jump in a little bit here?
Can I mention one thing, Mayor?
Yeah.
You know, through the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, which has been run through Planning and Development, I know Dennis could tell you this as well. What we found is a lot of the houses that are foreclosed, banks will hold on to them and keep them on the books as long as they want. So you wouldn't even, there's no way to track that it's a foreclosed home because a bank won't let you know that they own the home at this point because they have it listed as an asset somewhere on a book and they may or may not want to sell it or, you know, depending on how long they want to hold it or that particular bank. The bigger banks take longer, for example, to rehab a home, resell a home. So it'd be really difficult to get an exact number, but Kelly can talk about the rehabs. But that's the whole point of the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, is we're trying to find those homes, fix them up, and as Dennis is saying, a lot of the investment, you know, the quick flippers out there, they're buying them, they're rehabbing them, they're selling them. But if the bank doesn't disclose that it's an empty home or it's for sale, there's nothing that can really be done other than you have Kelly Kearney potentially with code enforcement go out and say you're not cutting your grass, you're not taking care of your property, something along those lines.
I couldn't tell you how many citations we've written to Bank of America for properties that they haven't taken possession of or taken care of. Typically, what will happen is we'll issue a citation. If we get the address, we'll issue a citation for cut and clean and maintain the property. If the property is worthy of being rehabbed, obviously we won't just throw it on an order to repair or demolish list, but ultimately that's what will happen. It will go on that order. It's not just a demo list. We all call it demo list. It is an order to repair or demolish. Sometimes the banks will come in and say, hold on a minute, don't tear down our house, or they'll sell it quickly to some of these investors. A lot of times that'll become a rental property. Very often it also becomes owner-occupied home. But if you give me the addresses, we have the Manatron system that the county uses that we can check for whoever the last owner is. If the banks haven't come and possessed a house today that was still in the owner's name, he said they foreclosed on me 3 years ago. He gave me the number to the bank. In our system, it was still that owner who had foreclosed on 3 years ago. So if you give me the addresses, what the neighborhood can do is call us, give us the address, let us do our thing, get the cut and clean orders, make sure the property's gonna be maintained, and take whatever necessary steps to get that property under control.
Thank you, man. You know, another tool, I'm going to do another commercial break here, and Chris, why don't you grab the microphone real quick? Another tool we have for situations like this, ma'am, where maybe there's a house that you want us to check in on because they're not mowing the lawn, or, you know, the front window's broken, or there's something wrong with the house. You have an ability to submit through an app, if you have a smartphone, the Go Hammond app. Chris, could you talk a little bit about Go Hammond and how it works, please?
Yeah, Hammond 311 is an app available for Android devices or Apple devices.
Hammond 311. I have like a mental block, I swear. Okay, Hammond 311.
Hammond 311.
I call it the Go Hammond, but yeah, I'm wrong.
One happy family.
Yes. Yeah.
So on that app, we actually have a code violation issue that you could report for that specific instance, and a vacant property that needs grass cutting. So that actually starts the ball rolling. And when you put that issue in, it's automatically sent to code enforcement, and right away they know what to do for that.
And they have to respond to it. They get an email that says there's a code violation on Torrance, and it's at this address, and the house is, the grass is growing too long, right? And they have to respond, and you'll get an email back from them saying, okay, we already have it on the list, you know, it's going before the judge very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And the potholes on Chicago Avenue, that could be reported through Hammond 311 as well.
Graffiti.
Yeah, graffiti. We actually have Crime Tip, which is anonymous, even though there's a little checkbox there that says please check it. And we have a category for other. So if it's something that we haven't thought of, you could still report it through Hammond 311.
And you've added a lot since it started too, right, Chris? I mean, there's a lot more tabs. I was on it the other day. There's a lot more tabs, a lot more options available. You can go straight to the Twitter, straight to Facebook.
Yeah,
you can go to the phone tree at City Hall.
It's expanding.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And when Festival of the Lakes is a little bit closer, we'll have a button out there to take you to the website for that.
The other day, as you can imagine, a lot of people reach out to me through Facebook, through whatever way they can get a hold of me. I have somebody that says, Mayor, I drive into Hammond every day. I get off on Kennedy northbound, and the ramps on Kennedy northbound look horrible. Every day I get off, they have litter, and the grass is long. I know it's state highway, but is there something you could do about it? So I pulled my phone out, and I put it in. And I know they got it in Public Works, and I saw them out there today mowing and cleaning it up. And it's quite frankly, it's not our job. That's state highway, but we could either wait for state highway to do it, or we could take care of business ourselves so that you don't have to, look at those types of conditions coming in. But it works. I test them. I did that one anonymously. So Gary didn't even know it was me, and he still had people out there doing the job. So I tested because, I want to make sure that it works for everybody it puts in. And I can tell you, I know it's the first thing they check in Public Works when they go in there, and they send work crews out, and a lot of times they're going to knock off the 311 complaints first. So anyway, we have over 2,000 downloads at this point?
We were too shy of that at the end of last month, so I'm sure we've exceeded it.
So 2,000 people have done it. They've downloaded it. It's free on the App Store. So Hammond 311.
We have the bags back here, Mayor, on the table with the packets for the 311 information, if anyone wants to pick them up.
You have a question about 311, sir?
Yeah, can you use it on the weekends?
Yeah. And it'll just backlog. Chris you get the emails. Do you get the emails even on the weekends?
Yes.
And do you assign them, or do they automatically, like if it's graffiti, does it automatically go to you and a graffiti removal?
Well, it goes to both of us, and that's one of the great things about the system is that if you pick graffiti removal, for example, it goes to the right department. You don't have to worry about calling in saying, I don't know who I need to talk to. You put it in Hammond 311, it's going to get there because we already know who handles those issues. That's one of my great fears as mayor. Let's say, sir, you call up. Let's say you have a graffiti problem. And a lot of people are like, I'm just calling the mayor. Mayor will take care of it, right? So you call the mayor's office. You say, Mayor McDermott, there's graffiti on Torrance. You need to get somebody out here to take care of it. I say, okay, what's the address? And you give it to me. I'm like, okay, no problem. And then I write down a slip. I say, graffiti on Torrance. And I forward it to Gary over at Public Works. And maybe Gary's on vacation for a couple of days. Or maybe Gary says, God, I'm getting sick and tired of the mayor sending me all these complaints. And he just throws in the garbage, right? I never know if that graffiti problem's taken care of. I just sort of assume, right? Gary doesn't do that, by the way, okay? He's been working for me for 13 years, and he does a very good job. I'm just using it as an example. But in this case, Gary gets an email directly from you, because, graffiti removal is part of Public Works now. So Chris gets the email as the master of the domain or whatever they call him, and then Gary gets the email as well. So
You the domain master?
That sounds like a Seinfeld reference. Yeah.
Domain master. All right, yes, sir. Hammond 311 question?
Vacant lots that when you demolish a house, who owns them?
Good question. I know, Phil, how do you normally approach that? Do we usually go to the neighbors in situations like that?
Well, through our program with NSP, we do own the homes once we rehab them. We don't do a lot of demolition.
Yeah, on a rehab. And we try to flip the home in a case like that. But what he's saying is, let's say we demolish a house, Chris and the legal team get together, we finally get through, and we demolish the house, and it's just an empty lot. Who owns the lot? That's the question, right? Kelly?
The lot stays with whoever the last owner was. We lien the property so that the property is actually liened, not the individual. So Joe Schmo owns this house, we demolished it, that lien's gonna remain on the property.
The cost of the demo remains on the lot.
On the lien, so if
So if you come along and buy that lot, you're like, hey, nice lot. And they say, well, you get... Right.
If you're interested in doing that, you can contact us, let us know. I think we'll certainly
outstanding.
Forgive the lien to have the property being taken care of.
That's ideal. In a situation, we usually would want you to fence it all in and make it look like one large lot. We do it a lot. I like those kinds of stories, sir.
It's next to my business.
Outstanding. Good. I think you
And
should
Mayor?
approach. I think you should approach after the meeting and start moving on that.
Mayor, the exception to that as well is with the BEP program, we have to acquire those properties before we demolish them.
Right.
So we are looking to neighbors or to other businesses to purchase that lot after the demolition.
That's the ideal situation, sir. It's ideal. We would love that. Okay. That's how I would like to think it works all the time. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way. So thank you. All right, Donna. Let's keep
The
moving.
sanitary district purchasing my home, I accepted a proposal. No word when the money will be issued, and no one is responding to my questions.
Kevin. Kevin's the attorney that's working with the attorney on this matter.
Yes, Mayor. Is that person the same person that was here last meeting? Is she around? Whose question was that? Yes. Okay, so here's what's happening. You guys have the house that you guys have a contingent offer on a new home, correct? On another home in Hammond?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Remember how I said after May 11th we were going to have some news because the sanitary district was making a presentation to the Little Cal Basin River Commission, I think that's it. They made that presentation. I talked with Dan Repay actually by email yesterday, and he said they're having a study session next week, and they're going to give us a number for what amount of grant money we hopefully are going to get. I can talk to you again after the meeting if you'd like, and I can give you a better update on your specific situation, because I know, for example, one of the homes they're going to be closing on next Thursday. So it just, I just want to talk to you about your specific situation. I can give you an update. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, man.
And we're on it.
Yeah, this project I get updated on. It's complicated, as you can imagine. It's a footprint. We're trying to acquire all the properties in that footprint. I know you have a situation you're trying to get out of and into a new situation. We want to help you. Okay? Thank you.
We have completed the written questions.
Really? I didn't even get any warning. Okay, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to ask any more questions. I do have a couple other things I want to cover. I'm going to prompt. It's good for me to ask my department heads questions sometimes because I know they got these great things and they're waiting for you guys to ask it, so I'm going to do it. Chris Sakalaris, right as you go. Legal aid. Chris runs legal aid. She's also my liaison to the Haas Charter School, which is what we're sitting in right now. She is a big reason that's here and a big reason that, you know, we have such a great relationship with Dr. Egan and all the teachers and students here. But Chris, her full-time gig for the city is working for the legal aid clinic, and you guys just changed locations.
We just moved. We were in the First Midwest Bank building, right across the street over here, but they've now closed the building. So thanks to the Hammond Housing Authority, they're letting us squat with them for a little while. Actually, we'll be taking over that building at the end of the year when they move to their new location, which is going to be just a couple blocks to the west. So we're kind of in cramped quarters, but it's a great location. We're at 1402 173rd Street. In order to qualify for our services, you have to be a resident of the city of Hammond for the last 9 months and meet the economic guidelines. If you are over 62, we don't look at your, we only look at your earned income. So we don't look at Social Security or anything else that you might have already earned. And we're there to help you. We are coming up on, and I haven't done the stats this month yet because we just got our computers back and running, but we're coming up on helping our 4,000th resident mayor this month. So,
Milestones.
yeah, milestones.
Yep. Cool. Thanks, Chris.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Next, I want to pass off to the Hammond Police Chief, who has an announcement in regards to HPCAC, Hammond Police Citizens Advisory Commission, HPCAC. We got to think of a better acronym, sir.
We could try to change that.
Yeah.
We, as most of you, I hope you know, you've heard, we've been advertising it for a long time. We've been working on it for over a year with the Department of Justice, and we're trying to build a community program that has 5 districts based on our community policing districts. We're looking for membership now. We need 5 individuals from each of those districts to volunteer. They will platform, if you will run for that position, be elected by their peers, and form a new commission which will interact and be a voice directly to the police department, to my office, and a voice back from me to the community. So we're looking for each of the 5 parts of Hammond. If you know someone in your neighborhood, it can be anybody. It can be an ambitious, outgoing neighbor who's very involved, knows what's going on your streets and the streets around you. It could be a pastor of a church in your community who's outgoing and interested in doing what's best for the city. If you're a Crime Watch member, for example, you're probably a prime candidate. You're already volunteering your time to go out because you care about Hammond, you care about what's going on in your neighborhood, you desire a relationship that extends from within your community outward to the city and especially to the police department. So those are the types of people we want. So if it's not you and you know somebody like that, we've extended the deadline on the membership applications to July 1st. Captain Alcox is in the back. He's one of my proteges on the board. I believe he has some paperwork in his hands back there that might help out, perhaps some applications. He can also talk to you further about this program after. If you do know somebody, we've extended the deadline. We're re-advertising in all the major newspapers and on WJLB. We sent that information out today. If you know somebody that's interested and you care about Hammond and you want to get involved or you know someone that does, please let us know. Hammond, GoHammond.com has the application and further information on that. You can download it from there, apply, and get it to Human Resources in City Hall. So that's a good place to start if you're interested or know somebody that is. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Chief. Hammond Police Citizens Advisory Commission. So if you're interested, please see Captain Alcox. How are you doing, sir?
Just a suggestion, and I don't know if you guys already do this, but one thing that we do out in Valpo at the university is that we have community building with the police officers and with people from the community. We hold a session together, and what it does is just build community relationships.
Yeah.
So when things are happening, there's already a report there, so you're not just meeting the cop for the first time when a negative situation arises.
Right.
And there's already a report in that neighborhood. That's some of the things that we do just to do community relations. I think one thing would be key if we was to record a session of that, like we're doing here, for the community to see. That would make the officers' face more noticeable, things like that, and it all helps the community overall. Just
Thank you. Appreciate it. But the police has been doing a lot better over the past couple of years. Captain Alcox, Chief Doty have been doing a lot better about outreach, stuff you're talking about. I think a lot of the police departments in the wake of Ferguson and everything that's gone on, I think a lot of police departments are sort of re-examining how they do business, Hammond being no exception. We had a lot of help from the Department of Justice and this Citizens Advisory Commission, and I think it's a great idea, and I appreciate your advice. And yeah, you're a Valpo resident?
No, I'm a Hammond resident.
Oh, nice.
I just work at the university.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Mayor Costas and I
Plus, I know the chief too.
Oh yeah.
He gave us short. So
Nice.
that's why I suggested it. I know he's a good guy, and I know he's
Yeah. Mayor Costas in Valpo is a great mayor. I'm good friends with him, so I appreciate you bringing that up. Okay. Last but not least, we had a change recently, and that Courtney Margraf, who'd been running the College Bound program for on and off for many years, recently took leave from the city, and in her place, while she's gone, I have Sharon Daniels, who's going to fill the role of personnel director and College Bound coordinator. So she's wearing 2 hats, and I just wanted to introduce her and say thanks. And I wanted to see if you have any updates, because I know there's kids that are graduating, and if you're a high school senior, or your kids graduating as a high school senior, they have certain deadlines they have to meet in order to qualify for College Bound. So
The deadline for all students currently in college or graduating this year is July 6th, 2016. We need your application in.
If you pass that deadline, not only do you get to do 40 hours of community service, you get an additional 40 hours. And everybody loves to do the community service, so
Yeah.
get the application in by July 6th. Minimum requirements are home ownership and proof of FAFSA, and that's for both returning students and new students. College students need a 2.0 GPA, and we need your transcripts. High school graduates, a couple of different ways. 3.0 gets you in. 2.5 with 1,000 on the SAT or 1,400 SAT combined, or 21 ACT. Those are
Okay.
the requirements in a nutshell.
So it's a great program. We've been running the program for close to 10 years now. We have an award application pending before the U.S. Conference of Mayors. We already received the national award from them one time, and we have an award pending before them where we may be recognized again as a national leader in educating students in the city. So hopefully this award gets chosen again. U.S. Conference of Mayors, pretty esteemed organization. So anyway, looks like we covered everything. I want to point out that I had an integrity moment about a week ago when it hit me that we still haven't rescheduled the 5th District Mayor's Night Out. We had a horrible torrential downpour that day, or it was a snowstorm. School was closed, and it was like, oh man, Mayor's Night Out. Oh, and my department heads were brokenhearted, because we love working until 9 p.m. usually. So, a lot of people are like, Mayor, 5th District's doing fine. They don't need another Mayor's Night Out. And I live in the 5th District, and I just couldn't bear the thought of not having a Mayor's Night Out in the 5th District in 2016. So we are rescheduling that Mayor's Night Out on, and all the department heads are like, dang. September 7th, Wednesday, September 7th is at Gavitt Middle and High School, again, set for 6:30 p.m. We also have our next Mayor's Night Out is August 24th, so we'll have 2 Mayor's Nights within 2 weeks of each other. So you just can't get enough of city government. You have 2 opportunities in the late summer. So we are breaking off for the rest of the summer. We found that we used to do Mayor's Night every month, and we found that attendance dropped off greatly during the summer months for obvious reasons, and a lot of our locations aren't as available. We usually do them in schools, and during the summer it's a lot harder to get into a school. So we decided to knock off, and we do 1 per district every year. We've been doing this since this administration took over. I think it's great, and keeps us in touch with each other. Again, this is GoHammond.tv. GoHammond TV has been filming this. It should be archived very soon. And I want to thank everybody for coming out to Mayor's Night Out. And again, thank you to Dr. Egan and the Hammond Academy of Science and Technology for hosting, as they always do. Thank you very much.